Good morning. I'll call this meeting of the Cartersville City Council to order. If you'll stand with me, we'll have an invocation by Councilman Tonsmeyer, followed by the pledge by Councilwoman Tate.
Let us pray. Loving God, we're thankful for the spirit of cooperation and care within the citizens of this community, and for the spirit of generosity that prevails among us, and for the diversity of ways and reasons we celebrate the holiday season. Grant wisdom to all in leadership roles, especially to this council, that we may make our judgments without fear or favor, and all to your honor and glory. Amen.
Amen. Will you join me in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Keeling, the roll, please.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1.
Here.
Jay Stepp, Ward 2.
Here.
Louis Tonsmeyer, Ward 3.
Here.
Lindsay McDaniel, Ward 4.
Here.
Diane Tate, Ward 5.
Here.
Lori Pruitt, Ward 6. Here.
Thank you, Connie. Our first order of business is the approval of our November 15th council meeting minutes. Council, you've had these well in advance of tonight. Chair will entertain any edits, corrections, or motions.
Mayor, I looked it over carefully, and Ms. Keeling did her usual good job. No corrections or deletions.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. We have a series of public hearings today and second readings which will require a vote. Mr. Menino, if you'll get us started on 212-02.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you noted, this is a second reading. The first reading, there was no vote on, but you all know that. And this went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the amendment to the multiple use zoning district to allow for rental facilities or rental car companies. The applicant is present for this. Since the, if I hadn't noted this, since the first reading, there have been no changes, and I actually can't find my notes on that particular case.
No changes.
But there have been no changes or additions since the first reading on the proposed text amendment to the MU zoning district.
Thank you. That's a lovely shade of red you're wearing today. I'll open up a public hearing relative to 212-02. Anybody wishing to step forward and make comment for or against may do so at this time. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
I have a question for Randy.
Okay, but we do have a question for Randy. Gather your copious notes and step to the podium.
I don't have them.
Randy, we talked about this during the work session. There are already some truck rental on Tennessee Street.
Well, as you had noted in the work session at the corner of Tennessee, there where Walgreens is under construction right now, there was a enterprise rental car facility that was a grandfathered location. There was previously automotive use there and the continuation of automotive use. And right now there are some other used car facilities located along Tennessee Street, which are currently non-conforming uses. We've had several requests before and after the enterprise rental facility left for a rental car type location along there, and the ordinance just doesn't allow for it. Now, we do allow other automotive uses on there, specialty shops, as long as the MU zoning property is along a major collector or arterial roadway. So with that, with Tennessee Street being an arterial roadway, that would be one of the locations where a rental facility would be allowed.
Now, to be clear, non-conforming simply means the business was there prior to the ordinance change.
Prior to the ordinance change or prior to zoning.
It doesn't meet the new requirement.
That's right.
Correct.
When it changes ownership, does it go back?
No.
Any other questions? Thank you. Chair will entertain other further discussion or motion. Would be in order.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next item is file SU 12-03, special use application. Mr. Menino.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. I do have my notes on this particular case. This is an application by Dr. Cliff Acuff at 300 Walnut Grove Road, an existing PS zone property with offices located in it. The special use request is to allow residential mixed use within the existing commercial, confines of the commercial or non-residential building. In 2010, we did amend the zoning ordinance to allow more of a mixed-use concept in commercial zoning districts. As the previous case, we had no additions or changes since the first reading. However, we did have comments on this one from our fire department. There is a recommendation for them to complete the change out of the windows for safety purposes to allow the residential in the rear and in the basement of this particular building. The applicant has a building contractor who has already spoke with us, and the applicant is fully aware of the situation and knows he would have to bring that up into compliance. Again, there was a lot of history with this. We've discussed in the first meeting and in the work session. However, this particular request is in the confinement of the current ordinance, the 2010 amendment we made, and with that, Planning Commission did recommend denial of this particular application.
Questions for Mr. Menino at this point?
Staff's got no problem with it, though, right?
No.
Mr. Menino, again, as we talked about in the work session, there was a lot of information on this particular application, and I liked the letter that the city sent out, and I didn't know exactly how that read, but it does read, and it's on page 27. You're in a zoning violation, first paragraph. But anyway, in the third paragraph, it says, I realize that you are most likely unaware of this regulation. I think that's nice and very decent kind of a way to express it to.
Well, we appreciate that. We try to work with people. We're trying to correct situations out there in code enforcement. We're not trying to hammer people and get citations written. Our goal is to make things correct and get things working like they're supposed to, not necessarily write a citation and get a fine, but we want to work with people. Sometimes that means holding hands in certain situations. Sometimes, it takes a little longer to get situations corrected. But we're not trying to tie up our court system or anything like that. The goal is to make things work, get things correct.
Absolutely. Now, that was in '07.
That is correct.
So then what does our code enforcers do when this comes up again with the same location?
Well, our code enforcement wasn't notified. The school system, apparently there was somebody utilizing this particular address as a residential address for school attendance purposes. And at that point, we had to investigate it. So with that, we notified the owner. The owner immediately came in. So there was no code enforcement action because they're immediately trying to correct the situation. Our ordinance changed, and with the change in the ordinance, the applicant does have an avenue to try to correct or make this situation in accordance with our ordinance, with the approval of a special use to allow this residential.
Mayor, may I continue?
Please do.
And I guess, Mr. Menino, my problem with that is it's after the fact.
It is after the
And I'm
fact.
trying to be very fair, Dr. Acuff, but looking at all the information.
That is correct.
and-
It is after the fact.
I think still that the question remains, is residential appropriate at this location, or will it be brought to code? I think that's the issue before you know what's happened in the past.
Well, it is, Mr. Grove, and yet, as a city council member, that's one of the things I'm reading in the information that's included and have to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried to provide you all the background information. I mean, this is something, that this particular situation doesn't date back to 2007. It was actually a different situation in 2007, but there was some history on the property.
Any other questions for Mr. Menino?
I'd like to make a motion to approve, please.
We have to have a public hearing first,
Oh,
but we appreciate your go-get-em attitude today.
I'm quick on this one.
Just one quick question.
Please.
There's work that has to be done in order to make the residents compliant with our code and before a code of occupancy could issue?
That is correct. There is some work.
Certificate of occupancy, sorry.
There-
Certificate of occupancy.
There is some work that needs to be done that will be corrected.
Okay.
We will require that.
Before anyone can.
Yeah, I think in particular, we were talking about the means of ingress, egress, and that had something to do with the windows, right, Chief?
Okay.
So they can get a way out if something happens down there. Last thing we want to do would be approve any kind of use like that and put somebody in harm's way. That's,
In other words, it's a deep building, and it's fixed windows at the front, and only one escape, which is the door, side
Yeah,
door.
they've got commercial storefront windows in the basement which are not accessible. You can't open and close, and that needs to be corrected for residential.
Got it.
Make
How
sure,
would it be coded if you allow for a business to be operated below and upstairs living quarters?
It's currently,
It'd be MU?
it's currently okay for a business. I mean, it was constructed as a commercial business.
you're asking about the zoning, though?
Yeah, the zoning,
He's asking if the zoning is MU?
the zoning is PS, professional services, which is
And
primarily,
And this is allowed with a special use in the professional service zoning.
And I guess he's asking though if it was flipped, right? If it was the business downstairs and the residents upstairs, it would be the same process of getting a special use for the residents because it's a PS district.
that is correct, but I don't think it could have been flipped. But I mean, that's,
Well, we've got that
we're
down-
thinking theoretical.
We've got that downtown. We've got businesses downstairs and residences upstairs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That answers because, well, I got a friend that's in that situation on Tennessee Street. And not Tennessee Street, but, I believe it is Tennessee Street though. Yeah? And I don't want to finger.
Give us the name and address.
We'll go be nice to him if you'd like.
She may come and get me tonight.
Mr. Menino, make sure I understand, the rezoning of this property, of this area to MU was accomplished last year?
No, it's actually zoned professional services,
Okay,
PS.
okay.
And that was back probably 2005, 2006,
Okay.
prior to Dr. Acuff constructing
Okay,
the existing office building that's there. It's already zoned. We amended the ordinance in 2010 to allow for mixed use, where if you came before council
Okay.
and planning commission for a special use,
Okay.
you could do the mixing of the residential and commercial.
okay.
So that brings up another question, Randy. If a building was built right next door to this building, and we pass this, then that building automatically is MU and
No.
no? Okay.
It's, depending on what the zoning, if the zoning is PS, like Dr. Acuff's property is PS, if they wanted to do a mixed use with residential, they would have to go through the same process.
Okay.
Everyone is evaluated. Each one is evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
I just want to make sure we understand what we're voting on today.
Does the special use run with the land?
Yes.
Okay. And we're not changing the zoning PS with.
No, that zoning-
only one access location. That's staying.
This
This is
the
simply the
existing
special
zoning and
use.
conditions of zoning on that property do
Staying.
remain.
Okay. Thank you.
So what has changed since 2007, this letter being written?
Our ordinance was amended, like I said, in 2010 to allow mixed use. The use of residential mixing with the commercial has been added to the list of allowed uses in the professional services and several other commercial districts. Again, with the caveat that it's with a special use permit. So you can't just do it. We have to be able to look at it and evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. And a lot of it deals with having to deal with public safety, letting us look at it to make sure it's safe for those purposes.
The assumption with that is that the special use is granted before occupancy is obtained for that building in question.
Preferable method would be get the special use, then the building, and look at it before the certificate of occupancy. Yes, we prefer to get that for the residential. I mean, there was a CO issued on this building. I mean, it was CO'd, there was a certificate of occupancy, but again, it was for the office use.
But it's not uncommon now for us to have commercial buildings with residential included.
No, you've had it in the downtown business district for a long time. And it's always been allowed as a special use in the downtown business district. Currently had a case on Cook Street in the building that's zoned general commercial where there, but that's a much larger magnitude, several residential units in that building.
But the permission for special use was obtained before occupancy.
Yes, that is correct. And that's preferable.
Chance to ask Dr. Acuff.
And I was just clarifying that Dr. Ryan's office, right around the corner, right behind the tennis courts, is an office residential.
It's not office residential, but I think it was developed in the county and then annexed in. That was the deal. That's where it may be similar to this one.
Okay, other questions for Randy at this point? Thank you. All right, I'll now open up a public hearing. Anybody wishing to step forward, speak for or against may do so at this time.
It'll be nice to.
Dr. Acuff, may I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, step on up to the podium and please, just for the clerk, I think might be overkill, but your name and your address, please.
I'm Cliff Acuff, and address is 300 Walnut Grove Road. Yes, ma'am.
I think you can see by the conversation we're having exactly what our concerns are, and I can only speak for myself, but my concern is 07 letter, and you certainly complied with that, and then it happened again. Of course, that's and we're trying to do everything we can to understand this, and certainly not be hard on you, but.
Yeah, and I think that you and I probably have a pretty deep discussion as to why all this stuff happened. And I can't, it's my fault. It's my fault. I can't blame anybody else, but kind of that was my options as far as an abode in 2007. And it came about in a discussion with a person that worked at a local bank here that I had this apartment, and she said, okay, well, I'm moving in. And I said, oh, sounds good to me, but I didn't really think that I would, I knew I was going to have this day of reckoning coming, but I kind of thought that maybe I'd get around to it proactively as opposed to being caught. So, so with all that aside, I'm just trying to maximize the use of this building. I'm also trying to ensure that the property out there doesn't walk away as some of it has, because there's not a lot of people out there, and the comment about another building that's out there. Oh, I'd love if another building was built out there, because I have some investment in an Axel diesel lane off of a road that goes to not much. And so I would gain to benefit from that. But in the current economic situation, I don't see a whole lot of building going on out there for 10, 15, 20 years. And so, I look at it as, well, this is a way to fully utilize the building. It's a way to provide some security that otherwise doesn't happen out there. And and unfortunately, I got nothing to say. I've got no defense as far as other than insanity. as far as backing into this the way that should it be.
How long do you think it would, if this passed, how long do you think it would take you to come up to the fire department's recommendations?
Well, and it's been not long. It's probably takes me a little bit to gather up some money to do it, but it takes a separate metering and windows that are, and I've already kind of figured out how that works, but windows that operate, and then smoke alarms, and that's the biggest issues. Otherwise, I don't think there's not a big problem. You know, it's just a matter of doing that. And there's nobody living there now, so you know, I'm not in a hurry to provide these things for someone's safety. So, anyway, more.
I appreciate
Well, I think
it.
I think in the agreement, I think the city gives you 60 days to do that, so.
Well, I guess, I don't know what the agreement is, I'm waiting to find out.
And there was
It was a
That's what-
recommendation of
that's what we
the, it was
talked
a
about.
recommendation of the fire department, I believe, was
We talked
30 days,
about
and
it
then a work
earlier.
session, we said
Relative to
we
how
could,
long it
any
took.
motion, if you choose to move in that direction, would be, I'd just ask that you put some kind of time limit as far as days to come in compliance. And it could be 30 if you want, it could be 60 if you want, it could be,
But as recommended would be 60. Is there?
There's no recommendation in the packet. That's what we discussed earlier. And the chief was asked how long it would take, and he said probably 60 days. And I think that was, the discussion of that was to make sure that it just wasn't open-ended and that you let it drag on.
Prior to the CO.
Yeah.
I think there is
So
somewhere in the
60 days
packet,
appropriate.
Yeah.
in the packet somewhere it does say 30, but that's, but it's not a, what a recommendation, it's more of just a comment, so. Any other questions for Dr. Acuff?
Yeah, there it is right there.
All right, thank you. All right, we still have, continue the public hearing. Anybody wishing to step forward may do so at this time to speak either for or against. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council, it now rests with you for any further discussion, any further clarification, or any motions.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve, given 60 days to come into compliance.
Second.
All right,
Prior to CO.
Yes.
okay. I have a motion and a here second. All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign?
Self.
Motion carries 5-1. Our next item is resolution for the CHIP Down Payment Assistance Grant Program. Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. This is federal money that the city is applying for, Community Home Investment Program. The grant application would go from the city to the State Department of Community Affairs, which handles the money. Locally, Etowah Housing Authority conducts first-time homebuyers workshops, and then upon successful completion of that, and if a person meets certain requirements, low to moderate income, either it's their very first time buying a house, or if it's been at least a certain time period, 7 years or longer, then they may be eligible to receive $10,000 in a forgivable loan if they stay in the house 5 years or longer. The city is applying for $300,000. This would help 25 families. Since 2000, we have helped 87 families get into single-family homes as homebuyers. There is, along with this, a typical fee required to apply to the state for $250. Staff recommends approval.
Questions for Richard on this item?
Hey, Richard, the only question I had, and I should have asked this earlier in the work session, is the funding that we're trying to get is not limited to a certain ward, is it?
This is anywhere in the city,
Okay.
and so typically in the past, since 2009, people who have, let's say, lived in the county or in other counties have specifically looked for a property inside the city limits to take advantage of this program. The last time it was approved was 2009 by the state. We were turned down last year. It's very competitive, but it's very worthwhile, so we want to apply again.
Mayor, question. Richard, I was awfully impressed a number of years ago, and I hope and presume we're still doing it through our housing authority. They're doing training for first-time homeowners, and they go through how to keep your yard, how to keep your home, how to keep your heat and gas system. We're still doing that, as far as you know?
Yes, that's correct, and that's really one of the great offshoots to this program. It's almost something like, you know, you wish schools had more time for this. It's like a lot of things, you know, balancing a checkbook, things like that. It's like, you know, you wish in high school you could take a course on this. It takes an entire day where the Etowah Housing Authority talks to people about everything involved in home ownership. And so that really prepares you in a way that people on a daily basis don't usually have. And so that, in addition to this, which serves as a, you know, temporary second mortgage for 5 years, and then it's forgivable. So it's very worthwhile.
See, Mayor, I think that's huge, that these folks, first-time homeowners, are getting this kind of information in a day long, and it makes them better members of our community, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Any other questions for Richard? Thank you.
One quick question. When would we know if we actually got this? How long does this take? The process, the application and response?
We'll know late winter, so probably around March.
Wonderful. All right, council, a motion would be in order if there's no further discussion.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Ms. Courier, you have the next item.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the Cartersville Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors respectfully request the appointment of Laura Jean to replace Harry Fincham, who passed away in October, and the appointment of Jill Mitchell to replace Susan Howard, who resigned at our October meeting. We would also like to acknowledge the leadership of Mr. Fincham, who served on the board since 2005 and had been chairman for the past 5 years. Additional thanks to Susan Howard, who served on the board for the past 6 years. Ms. John-Ray and Mitchell both have businesses in the downtown district and have already shown their eagerness to help lead the DDA into the future through support of various events and activities. It is recommended that Laura John-Ray and Jill Mitchell be approved for appointment to the Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors.
And just a bit of housekeeping. I'm hoping that, I mean, they're filling unexpired terms.
Correct.
Are those terms, do you know which one's going into which slot so that when those terms expire?
They actually both were set to expire in February of 2013. So.
Okay, thank you.
13 or 15?
15, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, any questions? If not, a motion would be in order.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a right of entry agreement for us to do some excavation on the Legacy Sod Farm property. This excavation is necessary for the Phase 2 archaeology study that we're doing in conjunction with Douthit Ferry Road. And right now we're just wanting to get your signature on the right of entry. There may be a financial component to this, but we anticipate that we may have to buy the sod that we damage, and we anticipate that to be within our spending authority. So if it's not within our spending authority, we'll have to come back.
Okay. If you'll allow to, could you go ahead and talk about the requests we've had for the public input on this project and what your recommendation on that would be?
Okay, sure. I got a very elaborate presentation here. I spent a lot of time on. We did have a request for a public hearing on the project, and basically we have to follow what's called the plan development process. That's what PDP stands for, and we have a project manager with GDOT that monitors our progress, and there's a big flow chart, and you've got to do one thing, there's a lot of prerequisites. And the 4 public meetings that we will have, the first one we've already had, that's the roundabout information meeting. We had that last spring at Cartersville Middle School. We sent out several hundred invitations. It was in the paper, it was on social media, and we had 3 people show up, and 2 of those wanted to talk about something that was totally unrelated to traffic at the primary school. So they weren't interested in the roundabout. But so we've already had that one. The PIOH, which is a public information open house, is we want to have that if the phase 2 archaeology stays on track. We want to have that once it's complete, and that'll probably be sometime this spring. And because once the phase 2 archaeology study is complete, we'll have a better idea of what alignment we have to maintain. Right now, we don't even know what the alignment is going to be on the south end of the project. So once we have a better idea about what archaeological features we have to dodge, we'll be able to have that meeting. Yes, sir.
And before you go on to the 3rd phase, I think that's kind of where, I think, not to speak for Councilman Tonsmeyer, but from what I've shared or he shared with me and what we've read, I think that's kind of where, I know that's where we are in the process, but I guess somewhere on that flow chart, it has the Georgia Department of Transportation going to some of our residents and saying, we want to buy your house and you got 24 hours to accept an offer.
Where does right-of-way acquisition?
That's the very last. That's property owners meeting. That's what the PIOH. We're a long way from what you're talking about.
Right, but
okay.
Go ahead and go through your process, and I guess we'll ask the question at the end. I'm sorry.
The public information open house will hopefully be this spring, and we'll be able to provide information at that time about what the proposed alignment will be. At the same time that we're having this open house, the environmental process is still ongoing. And once we have a draft environmental document, another acronym for you, DED, once we have the draft environmental document, it'll be submitted to the public for a time period. It's like 90 days for their comment, review, and for the public to review it and offer comments on it. And at the end of that review period, that's when we'll have the public hearing open house. And that's where we'll have a court reporter, and they will take all the public's comments, and those comments will become part of the environmental document once it's approved. And then after the environmental document's approved, and once the alignments are all set, then we'll have a property owners meeting, which that's where the people that we're going to acquire easements or property from will all be invited to that. And that's where we'll start educating them on the process and what their rights are per the Uniform Act, which is a federal act that protects property owners in property acquisition phase of a project like this. So that's sort of a quick and dirty. We'll end up having 4 public meetings. We've already had one. And hopefully we'll have the second one this spring.
And I don't want to, certainly not slinging arrows at you, so I hope you don't take it in that way, but I have heard that the DOT has approached some property owners, basically giving them a price on right-of-way and wanting a quick decision relative to this project.
That's relative to the Old Alabama Phase 3 project. Yeah, on Douthit Ferry, the city is responsible per the project framework agreement for acquiring the right-of-way. So it won't be the DOT acquiring the right-of-way for Douthit Ferry. It'll be the city. So any property owners that have been approached now, there are some property owners along Douthit Ferry at the very southern end of the project that are affected by the Old Alabama widening, and that's what's going on now.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
But, as I talked with you, stakes were put in people's yards, and people were approached and told they had a deadline to approve because a supervisor with DOT was going to retire, and they won't have it all wrapped up by then. I think that is offensive. And I realize that's not your project, but that's what causes the unrest and this confusion about who's doing what.
Yes, sir, I can definitely empathize with the folks in that situation.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. I'm happy.
Okay, but we still have the right of entry for Legacy Farm.
Thank you for keeping us on task.
All right.
Mayor, I have a question. Tommy, would it help you if our motion says, and go ahead and include the price of the sod if needed? Does that help you, or is that just a budget, something you can work?
I think that's something we can,
Okay.
I mean, because we haven't finalized our negotiations with the sod farm yet, and we have a good relationship with them because we buy a lot of sod from them, so I don't anticipate that being a big issue. But
I was trying to
if it turns
anticipate
into
you
one,
not
I'll
coming
just
back.
need to come back, yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay. Thank you. Motion would be in order if there's no further discussion.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Right of entry for Habitat for Humanity, Mr. Quist.
Morning, Mayor and Council. I do apologize for my voice as I'm struggling with a little cold here. If you recall, just a few weeks ago, you authorized the purchase of properties located at 22 and 24 Martin Luther King Drive. These two properties are slated to be the future locations of 2 additional Habitat homes that we've been building through the 2009 CDBG Disaster Recovery Grant Program. Typically, what we've done after we purchase these properties is we have transferred ownership to Habitat for Humanity. We recently discovered that there's a process that we need to follow in order to transfer that property that involves some fairly lengthy advertisement in order to transfer that property. We have started that process, but unfortunately, we're looking at transferring the property probably sometime after Christmas. Normally that wouldn't be an issue. However, there's a couple reasons. We're trying to go ahead and allow Habitat to proceed building before we have transferred the property. One, they have received an offer for a significant amount of funding from United Way and Anheuser-Busch in the amount of $60,000. As part of that funding agreement, I believe that the folks at Anheuser-Busch and United Way wanted to do some work on the property prior to Christmas. I think it's sort of an employee morale kind of thing, just a group project. And in order for them to be able to work on it before Christmas, we would need to grant Habitat right of entry to that property prior to their actual ownership of the property, which again is what we ultimately intend to do. In addition, the colder it gets, the harder it is for them to pour concrete for the foundation. So the bottom line is we're just trying to get them in there as quickly as we can. That would require us granting them right of entry. In addition, in order to mitigate some of the inherent liability, we have asked them to place us on their insurance policy, and we do have a certificate of insurance stating that they have done that. So staff does recommend your approval for this and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Tom on this? If there are none, motion would be in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Tom.
Mayor, may I?
Go right ahead.
I know we're trying to move this agenda along. It is a morning meeting, but I appreciate Tom mentioning Anheuser-Busch and United Way, and I just want to take this time to say, you know, we've got some fantastic corporate partners in the city, and maybe we don't talk about it enough, but it's a good time to mention them and say thank you, because it does make a huge difference in this city.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Riggs, you got the next two.
Yes, Mayor. The first is a confidentiality agreement with Southern Natural. Instead of filing a traditional rate case, they're wanting to try to negotiate a rate settlement, and I need the approval so that we'll be able to participate in the negotiations.
Questions on this item? If there are none, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, please.
This is the purchase of a horizontal directional drilling machine We received bids from the two major manufacturers. We're recommending accepting the low bid of $196,500 by Vermeer.
Okay. And just as a side note, this is a piece of machinery that can be used department-wide or city-wide, I guess.
That is correct.
Thank you. If there are no questions, a motion will be in order. If there's a question, then go ahead and ask it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Gary. Major DePrima.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request to purchase 3 patrol vehicles out of this year's budget. We had recently sent out 13 bid requests. We received 6 back. Of those, the best bid was the third lowest bid to Carl Gregory on a Dodge. In comparison to the previous Dodges we've purchased, it is the best vehicle that we've had in our fleet. We sent locally out 3 bid requests as well to City Motors, as well as Richard Wynn, and to the Dodge dealership here in Cartersville, Chuck Clancy. Chuck Clancy came back unopened. We did not receive a bid back from Richard Wynn. City Motors was the highest of the 6 bids that we received back. It was also on a Ford Taurus, which we did not spec out. So of those bids, Carl Gregory being for the purchase on those 3 vehicles was estimated at $23,234 each, for a total of $69,702. So we're requesting $87,000 not be exceeded for the purchase of all 3 vehicles and to equip those vehicles.
Okay.
And this is funded through DEA funds?
Yes, sir. It is funded through DA funds, not general tax funds.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Lindsay, you gotta be quicker on your buzzer over there.
No.
Just for those that have a copy of the agenda, item F3 regarding wood pole inspections, that was removed from the agenda. It wasn't required to action by council. And so we'll call on Mr. Myers for the next item.
Yes, sir, Mayor. We have a structural issue at the electric system office building. When the building was originally built, part of the trusses supporting the roof were put on a floor band instead of an actual support. That has shown itself, and we need to construct a support within a first floor wall to support a beam in the attic to hold these trusses up. We have a contractor currently on site doing another unrelated job, and the price from that contractor is $6,570, and I ask that you approve this expense to get that repair completed.
Okay.
Actually, it's already in progress.
So we'll get them to take the beam out if we don't approve it, right? Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll offer a motion to approve before the ceiling falls.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt, you have the next item, trucks for meter readers.
Honorable Mayor and Council, the meter readers are in need of 2 replacement trucks for their fleet. There have been no purchases for their fleet in the last 7 years, and we're kind of behind the 8 ball. The existing fleet is continuing to need repairs. I did put 1 truck purchase in the current year's budget, but since then, there's another truck went down. According to our garage, it's beyond, the repairs needed make no sense to make the repairs, i.e. there's a major transmission problem with the truck and also a severe oil leak. Bid packages were posted on the city's website, and 7 vendors responded back to our request. All the bids submitted meet the specifications and also contain the completed documents. The bid dollar amounts ranged in the amount of $31,432 to a high of $45,928. I recommend the purchase of the 2 trucks be made from the City Motors, which is the 3rd lowest bidder, with a bid of $32,052. City Motors is a local bid, local vendor. The bid is only $620 more than the lowest bid. It being a local bidder, or local vendor, I should say, and basically lets us, in case the vehicle need warranty work, it's more economical for us to have it purchased here. I recommend your approval of the 2 meter reader trucks from the City Motors in the amount of $32,052. All E-Verify documents are on file.
All Any questions for Tom on this item? And if there are none, a motion would be in order.
Motion to approve purchase from City Motors.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Tom. Bobby, next item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This was originally scheduled to be a commercial truck instead of a residential truck. In fact, I took bids. We received 26 bids on a commercial truck, and in the process of evaluating those bids, the week before Thanksgiving, all 3 of our existing fleet went down, 2 of which had major issues. So rather than proceed with a commercial purchase or recommendation to council, we decided to back up, and we felt the residential need was more important at this time. I scrambled around and tried to find somebody that had a good used truck that would meet. If you'll notice, this is a 2003 of our existing unit. It's a 2-man truck, standing drive. It's the most efficient curbside garbage collection truck out there. There are 3 companies in the United States that still build this truck. This is one. And the company that we bought our recycling truck is one, and there's one other company. But I scrambled around to try to find a good used truck or a factory demo that we could purchase like now. And the one that's on the agenda is the only one available in the whole country. It's a 2012. It's got all factory warranty and everything still available. In fact, we demoed this truck back when we bought our recycling truck just to see how it would do on our streets. We have to maintain a 2-man operation because my manpower is such. What you're looking at on the screen is this demo truck, and it dumps cans either side, dual standing drive. Basically, one of our existing fleet we're not going to repair because it's just going to cost too much money. So we've surrendered it. It's done. We'll use it to rob parts, maybe to keep the other 2 up and running. But we spent $11,000 on our flagship, and I keep calling it our flagship commercial truck. It's our largest truck. It's the truck that carries the most payload every day that we use. We've decided to swap the purchases. Instead of going commercial truck now, we'll go to commercial truck next year, residential truck now, because we're really dangling in the air on residential at this point. I don't like bringing one bid to council. This is a demo truck. In fact, I talked to both other companies, and they said, we got nothing. We will not have anything at this. If you bid it out today, we're looking at 6 to 7 months. Because the model year is like in August, September. We were just lucky enough that the demo unit that we had tried out before was still available. We want to recommend the purchase of this unit from GSP Marketing, same company we bought our recycling truck from. It's doing great. $201,779.04. We originally had $225,000 budgeted for a commercial truck. Lease pool, this can be purchased through lease pool, and that'll be our recommendation. One other caveat, if they hadn't loaned us this truck, no strings attached, we would not have made it through Thanksgiving without renting at a tune of about $6,500 a month other trucks. So that being said,
okay,
that'll be our recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions for Bobby on this item? And if not, a motion's in order.
Bobby, I did have a question. This truck new would be how much?
$235 to $240. And the reason that nobody's got any 2013s, and I'll explain that, Mayor, and I know we want to be brief, but this chassis is a Freightliner chassis, and Freightliner has the market cornered on the dual standing drive. They're the only company out there that's doing it. And International Harvester Company sued Freightliner and won, and the results of that lawsuit, Freightliner lost a year of production. So 2014s are the only thing available. There are no 2013s. That's why we've got a 6 to 7 to 8 month wait. And nobody's got anything built. We've checked, so.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept this bid.
And I'll offer a second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. All right, Ed, you've got the next three, please.
Mayor, council, the grit collection equipment at our water pollution control plant is in need of rehabilitation. We received prices from 3 different contractors to perform this work. We are recommending award to the second low bidder, Southern Machine, in the amount of $78,550. They're $184 higher than the lowest bidder, but we feel they can complete this work in a more timely manner. We do have the E-Verify and Save documentation in hand.
Okay. Any question or discussion on this item?
Yeah, just to address some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, you've never had an issue of non-performance with A&D? Have they ever pulled off when you didn't want them to or anything like that?
They've never not completed a job, but they are a smaller company. They do have clients or customers that are much larger than us, that are much more important. So if one of their other customers has a job requirement, they will more than likely stop work on our job to go respond.
But you've never had issues of non-performance in the past?
No issues with non-performance, and they always get the job done.
Was there any specification of time limit at which to do this work?
I don't know if we gave a time limit. We didn't specifically prohibit stop work on the work. Just looking at this, we feel that this is the best submittal. As far as we know, we have money and time involved when we have our staff involved on these projects. So we, just based on past performance, we feel like this will actually come in at the lowest overall cost once you factor in the cost of our personnel.
Ed, I guess my thoughts are, I would sure like to be, these are both local companies and people we all know. I guess I'd like to make sure that they both have been given the option of how quickly can they complete it, if that's competitive. I mean, it seems to me like that's the missing piece, and we talked about this a lot in the work session.
I guess what we're looking at is it's a difference of $184, and we're looking at, so the machine does have more resources to apply to this. Based on past performance, we feel like it will be completed in a shorter duration. And when you factor in the cost of our people being involved, it comes in at a lower cost.
Absolutely. But still, my question is, has it been put to all 3 companies? This is the time limit we would expect this to be done in. Can you comply? I mean, has that been said? I'm talking about fair here. We're not talking about a lot of money, but fair.
On our last rehab project for the other grit collection unit, that project drug out, we felt like an additional month and a half.
But there was no specification of the time at which the work should be done. Is that correct?
Right. Well, what we're looking at is the lowest overall cost, regardless of what's specified. So what we are offering you or proposing to the council is approval of what will be, we feel, the lowest overall cost.
And that's based on the assumption that from the prior job that was done, that I guess A&D would take a longer time to do the job.
That's correct.
If a circumstance came up. If not, they would be able to comply. Have we ever had Southern Machine do a job like this?
They've done work for us, yes.
On the grit collector? I mean, because I know that you
not on the
stated
last grit. We have 2 grit collection units, and so A&D did the replacement on the last one.
Mayor, I would sure love for the question to be asked to both of our local companies. I would prefer that our water department talk with them and say, can you meet this timeline?
I don't know. I mean, I think you've got a piece of machinery that needs to get fixed right now. And I guess the only thing I would say is the staff has brought to council a recommendation based on what these bids are, but that is their recommendation. If council wants to make a decision in another direction, then that's certainly within your purview.
I think if you
But I
want to
don't
do
know if
that.
If you do that, you'd have to do it on the front
You
end.
could
or you'd
always
have to-
consider throwing the bids out and rebidding it if you're going to have that discussion, because I think if you go back to them, it's kind of changing the rules in the middle of it.
Well, from my perspective, it took us a while to get to the wording, the best bid. And I have some concerns about that. I mean, I like for, again, it's not a lot of difference in the money, but when it's
And what we feel
local
like,
folks.
too, I will add this in, there's costs involved in rebidding this. And so you're looking at a difference of $184 on the bids. Factor in the hour cost of our personnel involved. But,
Yeah, but
and
one person-
this is the recommendation the water department is making.
Well, we're not talking about the difference between $184. We're talking about which company will get the bid. And what's the criteria which to make that decision. And
Well, I think with all due respect, I think Ed's made the case for the staff recommendation. And once again, I think it comes back to council. You have the two different bids, the difference of $186, and if council wants to make a motion and choose one or the other, that's within your purview. But I don't think any further discussion about why or how or what. I mean, they've obviously got the reasons they've made a recommendation.
Sounds like.
So the business before us right now, I don't think, I mean, we can approve one of these three bids, we can kick the whole thing back and start the process over again.
Both could do the job, though, in your opinion?
That's correct.
Okay.
The way I look at it, you got three sources here, and we don't have any criteria that states that one is better than the other in writing. In other words, I hear what you're saying about the low cost overall versus the $184 situation, but I believe that, well, like I said, I've got a lot of buying experience. It's not aircraft though, but anyway, the A&D contractor would get that bid.
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we consider A&D's offer, the $78,366, in lieu of thinking about $184.
All right, there's a motion on the table to accept the bid from A&D Contracting for this work. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-1. Next item, Ed.
The next item is the Tennessee Street Walgreens water main replacement. The water main on Tennessee Street serving the block where the new Walgreens is being located is in deteriorated condition and is in need of replacement. We received bids from 3 different contractors to construct this water line replacement. C&L contractors submitted a low bid in the amount of $86,510. Water Department recommends award of this contract to C&L Contractors of Dallas, Georgia, in the amount of $86,510. This will be paid for from bond funds and part from a $25,000 partial payment from Walgreens to advance this portion of the Tennessee Street water main replacement project. We do have the E-Verify and Save documentation in hand.
Is there a separate agreement with Walgreens for them to give us that money that council's approved?
That was brought to council.
Have we got an agreement on it?
Yes.
Okay, if we did.
I think I do remember
Do it.
looking
Yes.
Okay,
at
okay,
an
good.
agreement. And Keith looked at it, made some comments and changes.
Okay. good.
Did it include them making this payment?
Yes.
What I don't remember.
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
Any questions or discussion on this item?
Well, Mayor, I appreciate the $25,000 going toward this, don't you?
I'd rather see it be 50, but I guess I'm going to get
Motion to approve.
second.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Thank you, Carrie.
Last item, Ed.
The Water Department has a project for construction of a 16-inch water main connector between Main Street and Center Road. We received bids on this project from 7 different contractors. CNL Contractors of Dallas, Georgia submitted a low bid in the amount of $489,981.91. There is an issue involved with this project on the bid bond they submitted. They submitted a 5% bid bond versus the bid documents required a 10% bid bond. Upon advisement of this issue by the city attorney, this matter is viewed as a minor irregularity and is being waived under the stipulations included in the bid documents. The Water Department recommends award of this contract to CNL Contractors in the amount of $489,981.91. It will be paid for from SPLOST funds, and we do have the E-Verify and Save documents in hand.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Offer a motion to approve the awarding of this contract to CNL Contractors
Second.
as the low bid.
Can we amend that motion for the council to include that the council makes the determination that the minor irregularity of the 5%
versus a 10%.
bid bond if waived?
I can do that.
Mr. Archer, it's waived only because the state law is 5%, and then the bid bond goes away as soon as this.
It's waived in your discretion, and I have previously advised council that there's an appellate case in the Georgia courts that is directly on point, where a bid was entered with a less than the bid bond included with the bid than it should have been, and the court addressed that situation and said that was a minor irregularity that could be waived by the city council.
And we're not going below the state law either.
I'm sorry.
And we're not going below.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay.
You're accepting the bid of the low bidder and making the determination that it was a minor irregularity that is waived by the council in awarding that bid as to the 5% bond instead of the 10% bond.
Okay. So the motion is there, is amended to waive the 10% and do it the 5%. Would you still like to second that motion?
Second is amended.
Thank you. So we got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. There is one item to add. Council take the motion to add that item to the agenda.
So motion to add.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I don't know if we did that according to Hoyle, but it's going to count. Randy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're requesting your approval of a quitclaim deed. As part of our first-time homebuyers program, one of the home buyers is having to sell their home. With that, they have not completed the 5-year term of the forgivable loan, and we'll have to go through this particular process, standard procedure. The money that comes from the sale of the home that is not part of the forgivable loan will be reimbursed to the DCA. And similar to the subordination procedure we do when somebody refinances their house or something, this is the standard procedure if a home gets sold prior to the 5-year term of the forgivable loan. With that, we request your approval of the quitclaim deed.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anything else needs to come before council today? Come on, Greg. Sheriff, you're coming, you better be right behind him. Sir. I said if Tara's coming, she better be right behind her.
With all the football activity in Cartersville going on, I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate our 12 and under football all-star team that'll be playing in Thompson this weekend for the state championship. We're one of 4 district champions that'll be playing. Play Saturday, and if we win, we'll be playing Sunday afternoon. And I just want to wish them luck. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Greg.
Just want to remind everyone that the Christmas parade is tonight, and we're going to kick things off at 3:30 with an ice skating rink in downtown Cartersville, and then we'll have some dance demonstrations beginning at 5, and our own Mayor Pro Tem Diane Tate will be lighting our Christmas tree at 5:59, so it'll be an exciting night in downtown.
I'm dancing.
You're dancing? Okay, let's go.
Police and fire at the new locations, we're up and running over there. Police court, I think, is still at the old location, right, Major?
That's correct.
Okay.
Very good. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn. Get a rump out of that.